Pleasant good morning, everyone. Troy Augustine, Pest Management Officer. Those in the back, you can hear me loudly. So as you know, the last time we had a training at Papa D's, we looked at different root crops. We looked at germplasm. And as we developed the germplasm, we were able to gather as much as 16 different varieties of sweet potato. 16 varieties. And by so doing, we realized, and having a background knowledge in sweet potato production, and seeing the problem that never goes away. You always find the leaves of the sweet potato, as you can see here, with holes. You always find, and sometimes you find when it's sold in the supermarkets and the shops, or even when you go to harvest your own sweet potato, you see your potato with worms or weevils inside of it. Now, the reason for having this activity here is because when you look at sweet potato, Ipomea batata, we realize that sweet potato is a staple crop. It is part of our food source within our culture, and it is used in many dishes. Farmers who do plant sweet potato earn a livelihood from it, and in most cases, there are those who plant as much as 2 acres of sweet potato on their farm. Because I've seen the challenges with the sweet potato in terms of loss due to pests and other diseases, and at this present time, the farmers who have planted sweet potato are going to say that it's making a lot of bush, it's vining, it's growing. Some of them would die because too much of water. And if you look on the market right now, you're not going to find a lot of sweet potato. Right? By finding out we have as much as 30 plus varieties, because I actually did from the western side to the north. Sun, when we went to Sun, that was the last farm we got potato plants from. But we have not traversed from that area in Madis to St. David's, where you can find varieties like the cricket gill and the others. Whilst we are doing sweet potato collection and having discussion with farmers, they're going to tell you this variety is, you might give it its own name, but that variety is being good and I don't want no other variety. When we were here in the last activity, who was here, we see that agro-processors are saying, I want the colored varieties, the orange variety or the purple variety. So we gathered some yellow, some orange, some white flesh potato, and we have as much as 16 varieties on the station, at the propagation station, that you farmers can get from. Mr. Kissen Charles is the one responsible, so he's a go-to person. But I work with the pests and how to control the pests. Yeah? My background is in agronomy. I was employed with the agronomy in the Ministry of Agriculture under the agronomy division. I'm transferred by choice. I'm now in pest management unit by choice. So we have 2 main pests, bugs, I would call, that are attacking our sweet potato, right? Mr. Francis, my supervisor, mentioned Scillas formicarius. It is another type of weevil, and that one, if it gets into your field, you will have nothing. It is not in Grenada, but we import sweet potato through every Thursday, the boat comes from Trinidad, or it comes in Grenville from St. Vincent, or it comes from Trinidad. You have sweet potato being transported from Trinidad to Grenada. Now, if that just one, or if just a pair comes, hitchhike, eating the potato, or they lay eggs in the potato, and you have time to kill it. Once the potato are here, they emerge as adults. the population stat. It gives us now the headache to control because it goes into every house, everyone eats sweet potato, and then we'll have a problem. The farmers will have a problem because we have to control. And because we have this continuous problem here locally, I thought it was ideal to have such a training. Most of all, you have varieties that are 3 months. Some you can harvest before 3 months. But you have 4 months variety, as well as you have other colored varieties that has its own market. So you go to umbrellas, you tell them you want sweet potato wedges, you get one of the orange variety. You can get also the purple variety. And it works well. You don't have to boil it because you're going to stain all the rest of your vegetables, and you know what happens. The same happens with the moonshine yam. So because of that pigment, and because it has its own stay, it can stand up on its own. Basically, it has its own culinary purposes. You don't have to boil all your sweet potato. I'm not getting into the culinary part, that is for GFNC, but you have to explore different options. You can bake it, you could steam it, you could roast it, you could, different activities with your sweet potato. So, Ipomea batata. We all know it here. It's a crop that we cultivate. For its tubers, somehow we don't eat the leaves. In Africa, they do eat the leaves. Yeah, but it's also a nutritious part. We have animals, some of us who have goats or have rabbits. After we harvest the sweet potato, and we have enough planting material in the field, we can also feed our animals with the remainder. Ducks would eat it, goat would eat it, other animals would eat it. Yeah? So, this mixture here, you see, please. We have an insect here who you may not observe. You might see this, but you may not know. I think it's touch sensitive. You may not know what the adult look like. All right? So sometimes when you harvest a sweet potato, you cut it, you find this worm in here. This here is the insect, and you can see it live. Sometimes you might find it within the crop, but what do you do? How are you able to control that pest? So, the Silas formicarius, which we spoke about, which I don't have a picture here, is not what we're focusing on here today. We are looking at the West Indian sweet potato weevil. This is one of the pests. We can see the damage, and this is a purple sweet potato. You can see the pupa, and you can see the larval stage, right? So normally, what the adult would do, it lays on this. It lays on. This is your sweet potato cutting. Let me just take one. So what the adult do, you go to collect, this is your planting material, right? What the adult do, she would lay on this part of the plant, on the stem. She would lay between this here. She might even lay her eggs here, covered with feces. And you might end up seeing a little black spot, a little brown spot. I don't know, I may have to, to know what is there, you may have to isolate and whatever. But you go to the field, you plant in half an acre sweet potato, you cut this one, or you might cut double, and you take it to your farm. You put it in the ground, you start growing, then you start seeing holes. So I'm into the symptoms. You start seeing holes in the leaves. You don't focus on here because you take your plant. But in most cases, what the female do, what this madam here do. Reddish brown, right? Covered with hair, white patches on the wing case. She lay her eggs, and in 10 days the eggs hatch. Wrong yellowish, laid on the stem, laid on the petiole, laid on the internode. Right? The eggs can remain there for 75 to 90 days, depending on the condition. If the condition is not right, it would remain there. Right? No, sorry, it's 75 to 90 eggs, 33 days to hatch. It hatches into a larvae, which stays for 20 to 30 days. It molts 4 times. It gets bigger, it gets bigger, it gets bigger, and it gets bigger again. Then after this happens, well, when it is happening, is because this pupa here, 5 centimeters long, would start tunneling inside the potato. Makes your potato unmarketable, right? And you start seeing small holes in the potato. By that time, the adult is maybe escaping or have escaped. So it pupates 10 days, turns into it becomes like this, and then it comes out back as an adult. The life cycle continues. So first of all, to avoid this, what you do as a farmer, you look for clean, you go to a friend farm or you come to the propagation station in Maribor to get planting material. You avoid a plot where you see holes in the leaves. Could be one of the 2 beetles. There's another black one we're going to look at just now. This can be easily controlled by several ways which we're going to look at, but avoid taking leaves filled with holes. It also indicates that you have feeders here, and once you see this bug, you see the stink bug, you see several other bugs, which means that the field is not cared for. In your farm, you can harvest a sweet potato, or before you harvest a sweet potato, make sure your field is clean. Make sure there's less bugs as possible. By doing so, you don't spread from one field to the other. You start harvesting your potato now. After you finish harvesting the potato and you clean the field, you come 2 weeks after and you're seeing 10 potato bust up. Especially in the dry season, if the soil is cracked, they enter there, get into the potato. If you don't have irrigation, it's even worse. So once you find the bugs, finding sweet potato to feed on, to live in, you plant another field adjacent. They find themselves in the other plot. Because after you come and you harvest that potato, you see the good and you just dump it on the side of the land. Another error, something we should never do. Never harvest sweet potato that is infested with bugs and put it under a tree, dump it in the drain, or leave it on the side of the plot. It's only gonna build up because those insects look for the potato to go multiply and to feed. And 90 eggs is a lot of eggs for each one. So one is making 90. We parents, we family, we people make 6 children. If we make 20, it's a lot. Ooh, a lot of children. They're making 90 children. And these 90 children are going to make 90 more, each one of them. So, and the life cycle is very short. So we have to control. Let's move. It is widely distributed. Yes? Widely distributed in the Asian Pacific, in the Americas, Caribbean, in the US, California, Florida, is there. We spoke of the Scillas familiarias. Now, if we are to manage those pests, one of the first things we have to do is quarantine. You know, you come in on the port, That's why we have quarantine officers. You come from Trinidad and you see chicken foot, potato growing nice by somebody, and you take a potato and you bring it come and you stick it in a bag and you try to come through immigration and they don't stop you and you bring it in your farm and you say, here's a nice potato. Or you go in the US, you go to maybe one of those supermarket chains, those food market chains, you see a colored potato that you never seen and you bring it in your bag and somehow you plant it in your field, it comes nice, but then you realize we're bringing not just the weevil, but another pest we might not have in Grenada. We have to be careful. That's why we have quarantine. We should be able to detect and also inspect our plots to ensure that spot checking. You go in the field, you look at your plot, you go in there and you start. If the bugs are there, you will see. You look at the leaves, you look at the stems with the small holes on them, black holes, and of course, the tubers are forming, they open the soil, you will see small holes. You root up a few, you cut it like that, you see the holes, of course, you know you have a problem. Yeah? Now, let me go into the control. Cultural control. There are varieties I mentioned with a short season varieties. The variety identification is a separate thing from this presentation, so we'll get there. We have short varieties, meaning by 2.5 months, you could harvest from it, they're big enough, they have enough weight, take it to the market. You're reducing the chances of the beetle attacking the tubers, which are marketable. Yeah? Compared to that with a 4 months variety, and especially if it's in this rainy season now, you plant the potato since August, and you're waiting to harvest, and you see you don't get in, but you leave it until Christmas. Mind your chances are slim, eh? From August to December, right? That's about 5 months. Your potato is ready to. Is it? August, September, October. First day in August you plant, harvesting in December. Your 5 month cycle. By the time you start to harvest and realize your potato is infested, your chances of earning $1 for this Christmas, especially this Christmas, where there is nothing in the market, there's no tomatoes, there's no vegetables, and your little potato is what you need to survive. I mean, you go cook, right? So, before planting, you choose a short variety, depend on your market and depend on your season. You have alternative hosts that the bugs will feed on. You remove them. Even the things like Lucina and other, basically you clean the field. Do not leave any weeds or other plant type in the field that the bugs are going to feed on. That's what I'm saying. Infested vines, which I mentioned shortly, remove them. And tubers as well. Uninfected planting material. So these practices include things like that. Uninfected planting material, especially the tip of the vine. Removal of volunteer plants. Volunteer plants are, after you may harvest sweet potato, you plant 3 crops, or you plant 2 crops, and you decide to plant a sweet potato. You might find a root making its own plant. Remove that. Because if it's there for such a long time, the chances of, or a sweet potato that remained in the soil and start making its own foliage, you see, it's additional, it's more potato, more crop. Or more crop, more potato. You remove it because the chances of it being there long enough would cause it to attract those bugs. Yeah? So we don't flood potato in fields here. I've seen it done whilst I was studying in Cuba. But what happens is that you get the whole plant. For example, it rains, as we had rains a few days ago. The fields are flooded. In Paradise area, the fields are flooded. What it does is that it covers the soil. It has no entrance for those bugs to enter. Right? Once those bugs get an opportunity to enter those cracks in the soil, they would find the roots, the tubers, and start feeding on them, laying in them, and then you have a problem. Yeah? A plant away from infested fields, you mold, somehow farmers don't mold sweet potato. You're supposed to be molding a sweet potato. There are some variety, not that they are resistant, or tolerant is that some of them bear closer to the surface, while some bear lower down. The bugs, they don't dig. So when your sweet potato comes on top of the soil, it makes it easy for them to attack. Now that potato, if it's exposed to sunlight, it gets green. You can't use the top of it get green. That's how you know that the potato needs to be molded. And you who are growing sweet potato knows that that variety bears in the runners, it bears in the stool, or it bears in both stool and runners. But what is critical is that when your potato catch, about 2 weeks, started to make the vines to run, mold your potato. By molding your sweet potato, you give it an opportunity to, so if this amount is in the soil, you have nodes. The nodes are where the roots come from. So you mold your potato a little bit more. These roots here tend to also produce tubers. By molding the potato, the weevils can't crawl, dig into the soil to find the potato, unless it is cracked. So that's where also irrigation comes in. Yeah? Repellent plants or companion crops can work, right? Crop rotation is critical, so you don't take a potato and put a potato again and again, and you think that's a potato grown. That's the most you could do. Yes?
I have a question about the repellent. What is some of the examples?
We have a lot of repellent plants. You see things like rosemary, chive, it's a marigold. They don't have to be planted in the potato plot. They could be planted in different areas along the plot. So the smell of it, they will keep the insects away. And again, there are a few crops you can intercrop sweet potato with. Somehow, I don't know if it likes corn too much, or if it does not, you might be able to tell me whether or not. But although corn works, it's not a crop that you want to make sure you potato have enough light. So basically, planting potato on corn, same bed, without proper spacing, without enough sunlight, creates a problem. Yeah? And of course, you can, if you go into organic, you can use like pepper spray and stuff like that. It keeps those bugs away. But of course, we have some other things that we can look at. As I said, we don't have resistant varieties. Varieties are tested and tried. And because some of them be further down in the soil, that's why most persons make ridges. So when they break the soil, the potato can get, instead of making beds, right? So you're going to find that in Peru, where the whole variety of sweet potato and Irish potato is, you can find they're working on varieties. And then we don't have all the varieties that we can mention, right? So there are varieties that bear deeper into the soil, as well as those that be higher up. Natural enemies, well, we have a powder here. Now, this here, Bovaria bassiana, you would find this Bovaria bassiana, which is a fungus. You would find it in the soil. It's naturally in the soil. It's not a synthetic. So it can be collected, isolated, reared in the lab, and packaged like this. And the packet is here. It is a white, if you can see, it's a white powder. So what this does, if we use this, it is sold at Remington Thompson. Not only for the organic farmers. To get out of the heavy pesticide, toxic chemicals that can poison you, get into your skin, get into your blood, you have issues with your health. Bovaria bassiana, and it is a certified organic product as well. Right? So yeah, the Bovaria bassiana as I said, it's natural. It's a natural fungus that you can find within the soil. Isolated, read in the lab, and at this point, you can purchase it at Remington Thompson. Now, this product can be used on several crops: melon, pepper, eggplant, cabbages, pumpkin, lettuce, banana, corn, herbs, spices, and ornamentals. So this product can work for any farmer. As I said, it is organic. It is organically certified, depending on what system of organics you follow. And if you're permitted by the organization to use it, it's your duty now to investigate and experiment in your own way. But what it does is that it gets in contact with the insect. The fungus attaches itself, multiplies. You see when you have bread and the bread are mold, fungus, that mold stays on the bread. It gets inside the bread. And then you can no longer eat the bread because both outside and inside the bread has mold. So this is basically what it does to the plant. And when it does that, it just eat up the inside. So it can't move, it just dies. It dries it up. Yeah? That's the nature of the Bavaria. So we have not just Bavaria, we have two other products that you can pass it around. You can have a look at this pass it around. Yeah? Right? So we have these products. We also have, in Cuba they use a type of ants that would go and attack those bugs, as well as mechanical control using, I've seen in areas where you plant the potato using a machine. You use the same machine to mold and also to weed. Yeah? So these products, as I said, as it's passed around, is a product that I think we want to start getting into. So we have a plan now to get farms, even the propagation station, to the point where we can use this product, spray it in the potato plot, and it says every 6 to 7 days, so we can do more than 4 or 5 treatments and do some investigation to observe whether it is actually effective enough to control your weevil without using Karate, Caratrax, Protector, Roger, and Vidate, and all of these other products. We want at least, because your potato is 3 months. Sometimes, if you harvesting potato from an early plot, by 3 months, 2 months and a half, you might be tempted to spray potato because you want to prevent it from, especially if you sell into places like Real Value or the hotels, Sandals, Sandals, and all of the new mega hotels now. They want blemish-free, pest, insect-free products. So you might be tempted to go and spray, and that can, by spraying your product, the chemical you use, it might have a life effectiveness in the field before it starts breaking down of 3 weeks, 2 weeks, some of them. And they call you and they tell you, I need potato next week. And you know it should not be harvesting, but you're tempted to do that. So to avoid this, we want to try something different. Right? So chemical control, we spoke of. So we spoke a little bit of the field sanitation and all of the integrated. But the best approach is a complete approach. Not just chemical, not just you go and you remove them from the field, or you're weeding. It's a complete control. So you want to integrate all of the approaches together, right? So you do your weeding, you do your pest control, you do your the correct treatment for the plant. And even when you get the plant, you could treat it with the insecticide. And at this stage, you can. If you're not into chemicals, then you can maybe work with the Beauveria bassiana at an early stage. But again, the Beauveria bassiana, you want to get it established within the plot. Once it's established within the plot, it builds up there, and once the insects get in contact with it, it does the work by itself. So basically, you can, after 4 or 5 years, you have a constant application of Beauveria. It is multiplying in the field. Your insect population would go down drastically. So integrated pest management is a better approach to control the bugs, right? So this West Indian sweet potato weevil, the pheromone trap is not basically for the West Indian sweet potato weevil. It is mainly for the Salus formicarius. It's not found in Grenada, right? If there is a pheromone that can be used to control the West Indian sweet potato weevil, it could be used, but I'm not exposed to that one as yet, right? I would believe there are some countries that are experimenting with it, but it is an option, right? And mulching, yeah? So I think in Taiwan they use, the Salus formicarius is in Taiwan, it's in Trinidad, it's in many countries. Cuba has it. But in terms of biocontrol and use of pheromones, etc., it's still something I have to investigate, yeah? So this insect here, which some of us are more common with, right? Sometimes we will take sweet potato from a farm to another farm, to our plots, transport it without disinfecting, and then establish it in the field. There's no bugs. And this one, which is even much more common, it infests our plots, and it does like damage.
Excuse me, this is the same one I was eating coconut tree?
No. It's a different one. This is its actual size here, right? It's sweet potato weevil, sweet potato flea beetle, right? It's not the West Indian. It's not the South American palm weevil. This is sweet potato flea beetle. There are many other types of flea beetles, but this one, you would find it doing the same, having the same effect, or you see the same symptoms on the tree, on the vine, as the previous pest. So it was just to show you what it is. It's basically both of them have a complete life cycle. So egg, larva, pupa, and adults, right? They feed on not the sweet potato, but that's something that we have to be careful with. You might have the sweet potato in the farm. They will feed on it when you plant sweet potato. When you don't plant sweet potato, you feed on something else. The alternative source where they feed on, you also need to get rid of it. Because once they are feeding on something in the farm, when they get to the sweet potato, it will be a lot. It don't just come as 1 and 2. The whole population moves, because the time you come to cut that alternative host that they're feeding on, it comes right back into your sweet potato. So in order to get rid of them, to starve them off, you also have to get rid of the alternative source of the bugs. So this is a flea beetle, and you can see several of them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we also asking the same method of control. Clean planting material, you clean field, you do all of the different practices, and you would so also look at this one, Fusarium root rot. And I think this is also one of our problems in sweet potato cultivation. right? Tree was sunken area. So you find this area is like it's soft, but it is hard, and then the inside of the potato looks like that. Again, this is another one of it. So that part of the potato gets hollow afterwards, it becomes rotted, and it spreads within the whole lot of potato. Yeah. So that one is a fusarium. So it's fusarium root rot. And there is also fusarium wilt, which you would find on the vine, and the dying of the vine in this period, this is one of your main problems. So remember, you can't plant sweet potato on flat ground. Times like now when it's flooding, where they have to have proper drainage, this could be your main killer, right? So if you're making a 4-feet bed, cut the bed smaller. Or use a hoe if you're using like that, or use a potato ridger so that you can do one plant in that area, you have proper drainage, and not your potato being rotting and your vine rotting at the end, right? So you have Fusarium oxysporum, which is also causing one of the major problems within sweet potato in Grenada. How do you control these Fusarium? I just mentioned, you don't have proper drainage. If you collect infested planting material from a farm, or in your farm, if you don't control it in your farm first of all, and of course that can be controlled by a fungicide, right? Fusarium root rot, Fusarium solani can also be controlled, right? And this area is critical because your tubers will be harvested, and if it's in the sun, or if it's damaged while you're harvesting and you don't remove it from what you harvested, your problem can also increase, right? So that's what I had on sweet potato pest disease.